in follow-up breakout rooms. Richmond and Tidewater will have Zoom links in the chat. Greater Washington's community will continue on this Zoom link. We come together this morning just as Jews have gathered to express ourselves to political leaders since the time of Moses. We will hear from our elected officials, deepen our understanding of the significant issues that impact our communities, and convey our commitment and engagement to our political leaders. Governor Northam is here as our first speaker. We all thank him for how hard he is working to roll out the COVID-19 vaccine and for using his political and medical expertise to lead our state through this roiling pandemic. We sincerely appreciate the time he gives our Jewish communities every year to share firsthand how he is working on our common interests. Governor Ralph Northam is a true Virginian. He grew up on the Eastern Shore, graduated from Virginia Military Institute, and received his medical degree from Eastern Virginia Medical School. Before he was inaugurated as the 73rd governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Ralph Northam served as an Army doctor, pediatric neurologist, state senator, and lieutenant governor. Perhaps most important, he chose an incredible partner in his brilliant wife, Pam, with whom they have 2 children. There is a positive two-way relationship between the Virginia Jewish communities and the governor. Our communities have emphasized the importance of VIAB, the Virginia Israel Advisory Board, and asked our legislators to maintain funding for this unique and important office in our Commonwealth. Last year, at Virginia Advocacy Day, Governor Northam shared details of his VIAB-sponsored trip to Israel in November of 2019. In August of 2020, Governor Northam announced that as a result of his conversations he had during his trip to Israel, Energix Renewable Energies, one of Israel's largest renewable energy companies, is establishing its U.S. subsidiary headquarters here in Arlington County. This important foreign direct investment brings dollars and jobs into our state. It was Governor Northam who included funding in his budget for competitive nonprofit security grants so that communities like ours can better protect ourselves against hate crimes and persistent threats of violence. Each of our communities will be urging our legislators to pass this budget out of a fundamental concern for the security of Jewish institutions. It is my honor to bring forth a true friend of Virginia's Jewish communities, Governor Ralph Northam.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Alyssa, for your kind words. I always have to say that your introductions are far too long, but you're very kind, and we miss you back in Norfolk, but I hope you're doing well. And to all of you that are joining the call this morning, thank you for taking time. This is really an important time to be able to reach out to folks like me and your legislators to advocate for what's important to you. I will tell you that the legislators are doing a great job. They're making good progress. They're going to be here probably for about 45 days. But I'm real pleased with the way things are going. And if it's okay, I just wanted to touch on a couple of those areas, if I could, and how we're trying to move Virginia forward. I still have so much fond memories of going to Jerusalem and going to the Holocaust Museum. And, you know, one of the things that has brought into focus for me, and I've tried to express that to other folks, is you know, that how we educate our children regarding our culture, whether it be for the history of the Holocaust or whether it be for African-American history. So we're doing a lot of work to talk to folks like you, to experts on history and how we can better incorporate that and make sure that our children hear about these things, because if one understands human nature, we know that history can repeat itself, and we never want to go back to some of those just tragedies in our past. So I think we're making good progress there. I know this is not a political group, so I won't get political, but I will tell you that to have new leadership in Washington has been a breath of fresh air in a lot of areas. But it's certainly after the tragedies that we experienced on January the 6th, the insurrection. And by the way, Virginia was the first state to send in resources to include our Virginia State Police. And we also activated our National Guard to bring order back to just our cradle of democracy there in Washington. And so I think having new leadership that provides messaging that we are all of one community, that we need to be inclusive, that we need to welcome people, we need to embrace diversity. That ship is not going to turn around overnight, but I think we can at least, head it in a better and newer direction. So I've been pleased with what we're seeing so far. Also, just wanted to comment, Eileen Filler-Corn, I think you're going to hear from her, our speaker. She's just done an amazing job. She and I are good friends. We work closely together, and I think really have an ambitious agenda this year. But I know you're anxious to hear from her, and I can't say enough good things about her. And our majority leader in the Senate, Dick Saslaw, is also of the Jewish faith. And then I wanted to also give a shout out. My press secretary, Elena Yermosky, is also Jewish. So she said to remind you all that we are well represented. And finally, Alyssa, you mentioned my much better half, Pam, sends her regards. She's doing well and working very hard on behalf of the Commonwealth. So we have a good team here, and we're making good progress. Just a couple quick comments about COVID-19. Hard to believe our first case was back on March the 7th. We've come a long way, but we still have a ways to go. But our numbers are trending down. Our percent positivity is coming down nicely. The number of individuals in hospitals is diminishing. Over 500,000 Virginians have had COVID. I'm one of them. We've lost over 6,000 Virginians to COVID-19. We've now immunized or vaccinated close to 1 million individuals. So that process is moving along nicely. It's obviously supply dependent. So I understand the urgency, but we also need to be patient. We have about 8.5 million individuals to vaccinate, and we're doing the best we can to get to everybody as soon as we can. And I should also say that, we want to do it equitably. We know that people of color, especially African Americans, Latinos, are much more vulnerable. Their numbers are much higher than the rest of the population. So we want to make sure to get to those communities. And I wanted to thank all of you. This has been an all hands on deck approach. And we have the Volunteer Medical Corps, and I know a number of individuals have signed up for that to either help with registration or some help with giving the vaccination. So just want to, on behalf of Virginia, say thanks to all of you that are part of the solution. And also, unfortunately, we've had some mixed messages coming out of Washington, but all of us should be wearing our facial protection when we're out and about. We should not be gathering in large crowds and keeping our hands clean. And, together we'll put this pandemic behind us. So I would tell you that a lot of people are working around the clock. So if you get a chance to just say thanks to folks, it goes a long way. I wanted to talk about some of our initiatives, which we're making good progress on, but I will start because my wife, Pam, would not let me come back into the House if I didn't say the good work that they're doing, but is with early childhood education. We want to make sure that all of our 3- and 4-year-olds have access to early childhood education. You've heard me talk about this before, but when one family has the means and another one doesn't, it really starts the gap between the haves and the have-nots. And so we've got money in the budget for early childhood education, and that's moving forward nicely. Now, why is this important? It's not just important for didactics, learning numbers and letters, but children are very impressionable before they ever get to kindergarten. And so, healthy diet, staying away from drugs and alcohol, and most importantly, I think, is learning how to get along with each other. We're all in this together. We're all God's people. And you've heard me say this before probably, but you know, the hatred and the bigotry, babies, if you've ever held a baby in your arms, they're not born with hatred and bigotry in their eyes and in their hearts. They have to learn it somewhere. And so if we can reach out and make sure that all of our children have access to a world-class education, I think that's a great start. So if you see Pam, thank her and her staff. They're doing amazing work in that regard. Now, another area that we've put a lot of time in is on the other end of the education spectrum, but that's our community colleges. You know, we've had over probably close to 1.5 million individuals that have lost their jobs during COVID-19. So it's a very important time that individuals can be trained and retrained. So we have a program called G3, Get Skilled, Get a Job, and Give Back. And it allows individuals to go to our community colleges without incurring any debt. Their tuition is paid for. Some of the wraparound expenses, such as housing, transportation, childcare, are paid for. So that's moving along nicely as well. We want to give our teachers a raise. We want to get our children back in school as soon as we can. We've made sure that teachers are a priority for getting vaccinated. So we know that our children have been hurt tremendously, and their families, during this COVID-19. So anything we can do to move that process forward and get our children back in the classroom is something that I think is a good initiative. So those are important things regarding education. I will remind you that Virginia is the #1 state in the country in which to do business. And one of the reasons for that is because we have such a talented workforce. And if we're going to continue that, we need to make sure everybody has access to good education. So that's been a top priority for our administration. I wanted to talk just briefly about the death penalty. I have felt very strongly about this, and I know people have different, viewpoints, and I understand that, but that it's time that Virginia get rid of that, and I think we're making good progress. That will be heard on the Senate floor today on what we call third reading. Some amendments that came from folks that wanted to kind of water it down didn't go through yesterday, and so we're looking forward to that passing on the floor of the Senate this morning, and then it will go to the House. But it's time just for a lot of different reasons. One being equity, one being a lot of resources that are being used to go through this death penalty process. Pharmaceutical companies choosing not to supply the medications used for these death sentences. And then finally, it's just inhumane. So for a lot of reasons, we look forward to eliminating that in Virginia. And then I just wanted to mention one last thing, and then I'll turn this out. I know you all have a busy schedule, and that is marijuana. Several years ago, and I say this as a physician, we were able to look at the medicinal uses for marijuana. One of them, by the way, is in intractable epilepsy, which is something that I used to take care of a lot of children for. And so we made progress there. And then last year, we decriminalized marijuana. And this year, we want to move forward. We would be the 17th state that would legalize marijuana. But this is also an equity issue. And if one looks at the way the laws are written, they're written to discriminate against people of color. And people of color and people that look like me use marijuana at the same rate. But people of color are 3.5 times more likely to be arrested and 4 times more likely to be convicted. And so I think it's time, if we do it right, and we have done a couple of studies looking at how to do this right, we can move forward with that. It's also a lot of revenue, which is a whole nother topic, but it would be coming into Virginia that we could be using for things like education, early childhood education, et cetera. And part of the legalization of marijuana is expunging the records of individuals that have this on their record. And so we're moving forward with that as well. So a lot of important issues in Virginia right now, but I wanted to tell you, overall, Virginia is doing well. We went into COVID-19 in a very strong position. I think we've learned a lot from COVID-19, especially a lot of the inequities that exist. They've been brought into better focus, and I think we'll come out of COVID-19 even stronger. So I'm optimistic. I hope you are as well. But I just wanted to end by thanking all of you. I have a lot of friends that I know are listening and watching now. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for folks like you. And it's been a tremendous privilege to serve as governor, and Pam would say the same thing as First Lady. We still have a lot of work to do this last year, but it's hard to believe we're in our 4th year. And as you know, Virginia is the only state in the country in which the governor has 1 term. So we're doing everything that we can in 4 years, and hopefully making Virginia proud and keep them moving in a positive direction. So your advocacy is important. We don't have a monopoly on ideas here in Richmond. So your input of what's important to you is just so important. So stay active, and in the meantime, stay safe and healthy, and hopefully the next time we meet, it will be in person. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Governor, for your remarks and for joining us. Sorry, let me see if I can turn my video on so I can chat with you. I was wondering, we really wanted to thank you among the things that you mentioned. Also of concern to us is the rise in anti-Semitism around the country. And we really want to thank you for putting in your budget the security grant funding that program. And just wondering if you can speak to that a little bit about what's happening in Virginia and how you're addressing it through education, through security funding, things like that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And, you know, it's important. There's obviously been a lot of unrest, and I think people, whether it be the anti-Semitism, the white supremacists, whoever, were just felt like they were entitled. And we saw this on January the 6th. So a lot of that comes from leadership and messaging and making sure that we welcome people and that we don't condone that type of attitude and behavior. So I think that's an important part of it. And the other part is making sure that places of worship, our synagogues, are safe. And so, you know, we have money in the budget to continue to do that. Obviously, that was a priority last year, and we'll, you know, continue that. But we want to really promote kindness and welcoming folks, and I think in time, you know, we'll be in a better place. But this, you know, past couple of months, to your point, have been very challenging, and we all have to be cognizant of that, and we have to be careful, and we have to protect ourselves and our families and our places of worship. So we'll do everything that we can, and again, with your input, to make sure that we keep folks safe.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your time and all that you're doing for Virginia. And I'm now going to introduce Rabbi David Katz, who will introduce our next speaker. Oh, sorry. Hold on 1 second. There we go.
Thanks, Alyssa. Again, thanks, Governor Northam. Thank you so much. I'm Rabbi David Katz from Temple Beth El in Williamsburg. It's my honor to speak this morning on behalf of the United Jewish Communities of the Virginia Peninsula. This morning, it's my privilege to introduce Attorney General Mark Herring. Mark is a native of Loudoun County, where he lives with his wife and 2 children. He began his political career on the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, and then served 8 years in the state Senate, where some folks from the JCRC got to know him. Now, in his 2nd term, Attorney General Herring has led the charge in keeping Virginia families safe and in promoting justice, equality, and opportunity for all. He is a true partner to the faith community and has been a leader in working to establish new tools to fight hate and bias crimes and to ensure that no one is the victim of discrimination for any reason. All of these are important issues to the Jewish community. We are so fortunate to have him with us here today. Please join me in welcoming the 48th Attorney General of Virginia, Mark Herring. Mark.
Rabbi Katz, thank you so much for the warm welcome. It is nice to see you, and it's nice to be on the call with all of you and have such fond memories of Jewish advocacy days going back to my Senate days. And obviously, I know we are all looking forward to a time when we can get back together and meet in person. That will happen soon, but in the meantime, it's good to be able to get together this way. And as I said, I still remember you all were the first group I met with when I was a newly elected state senator in a special election in January of 2006. And you and your group have always been a moral example and a powerful force for building a more fair, a more just, and a more equal Commonwealth. I did want to mention, while it looks like this is an official setting, it's actually in my apartment in Richmond. And today, the building management is testing the fire alarms. So if we have a fire alarm, I may have to cut my remarks a little short, but hopefully that won't happen. And in the few minutes I have, I really wanted to give you a quick update on what we've been working on since the last time we were together and what we're focused on in this legislative session. This year has obviously been dominated by COVID, and so has our work. Since the first days of the pandemic, we've been working literally round the clock through the weekends to help Virginians navigate the COVID crisis. We worked closely with Governor Northam as he took smart, science-based steps to slow down the spread. And we've successfully defended Virginia's COVID safety measures in court dozens of times, including lawsuits that attacked Virginia's mask requirement. We secured the first moratorium on utility disconnections, worked to help address evictions during the pandemic and address price gouging and put a stop to it, and also to try to get more PPE into the hands of those who need it. And since we were last together, we've also done a lot of good work to protect and expand the rights of Virginians and to make our Commonwealth a more just and fair and equitable place. It was exactly a year ago when I filed a landmark civil rights lawsuit to force the federal government to recognize Virginia's ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. And how proud were we when Virginia became the 38th and final state needed to ratify it. It is way past time that women should have constitutional guarantees of equality, and we're going to make sure that Virginia's ratification is recognized and that the ERA is recognized as a part of the Constitution, which it is. We also won passage of new gun violence prevention laws and then successfully defended them against a number of legal attacks by the gun lobby. After years of pushing, we finally have universal background checks, one gun a month law was reinstated, and a red flag law to protect people from gun violence, and we've defended every single one of them in court. We also led the first ever investigation into allegations of racial bias in a Virginia school system. And we've worked throughout the year to help take down Confederate propaganda that tells a false version of history and serves as a reminder of a shameful and racist past that we should move beyond. After Governor Northam ordered the removal of the Lee statue on Monument Avenue here in Richmond, there were lawsuits filed and we defeated every single one of them. Now, one of those cases is on appeal to the Virginia Supreme Court, but we are going to win that case and we're going to remove that symbol of division and hate. And finally, we have launched Virginia's first conviction integrity unit to fix and address wrongful convictions. Wrongful convictions are the ultimate miscarriage of justice because a wrongful conviction robs a person of their freedom and the life that they wanted to live, and it is something that can never truly be undone or righted. So we've created Virginia's first conviction integrity unit to make sure that we can identify wrongful convictions and move as quickly as possible to make them right. And of course, our focus on protection and expansion of civil rights is not new. This is something that has been a cornerstone of my administration for all 7 years I've been Attorney General, but it's gone to a new level over the last year. And as you all know, protection and expansion of civil rights has continued to be a priority for me. And just days into my term, for example, I took up the fight for marriage equality and got Virginia's ban on same-sex marriage struck down. We successfully defended Governor McAuliffe's restoration of rights work because that restoration of civil and voting rights is such an important part of helping someone to return and reintegrate successfully into the community. And we stood side by side with the Jewish community to fight Trump's Muslim ban, which was such a horrible and bigoted policy. But as bad as it was, I still found hope and inspiration in the response to it, because people of all faiths and backgrounds stood up and said, no, this is wrong, and we're not going to put up with that. And then last year, after years of working together and pushing, we finally won passage of new laws to better protect Virginians from hate crimes and white supremacist violence. And sadly, we have been reminded on too many occasions that hate and bigotry and anti-Semitism and white supremacy remain an unvanquished force of darkness in our country. And we know that defeating those forces requires a constant, unwavering, and unmistakable commitment to opposing them whenever we find them. And there was so much about the January 6th attack on the Capitol that was frightening and heartbreaking, but right at the top of the list was the clear strain of white supremacy and anti-Semitism within the group. It was undeniable, and you saw people, some even from Virginia, wearing clothes with some of the most vile anti-Semitic slogans you can imagine, and a sad reminder that we have a lot of work ahead of us. There's also some really exciting news this past year about fighting to protect your rights. For years, we have been working to protect and expand the civil rights of all Virginians. And now that work has been centralized and formalized in the OAG's first Office of Civil Rights. And I want every Virginian to know that as their Attorney General, I will continue to be relentless in defending their rights. And wherever we find discrimination and oppression, we will put a stop to it, no matter what you look like, where you come from, how you worship, or whom you love. As your Attorney General, I will have your back and I will fight for you. We have been working for years to create a true, robust Office of Civil Rights within the Office of Attorney General, building capacity and honing the focus of our work, as well as twice before pursuing legislation to codify its existence into the future so that future generations of Virginians will always know that protecting civil rights will be a key feature of our mission. And the creation of this office is the culmination of that work to expand the authority and resources dedicated to protecting the civil rights of Virginians and to place the protections of civil rights at the very center of our mission. This work, the office is working right now to expand and protect civil rights in a lot of different ways, conducting pattern or practice investigations of individual police departments to identify and eliminate unconstitutional and illegal policing, combating LGBTQ and gender-based discrimination, as well as race-based discrimination, combating housing discrimination, employment discrimination, discrimination in places of public accommodation, protecting the rights of expectant and new mothers. So obviously you can see it is a very robust mission, and it is the culmination of years of work to build this out, and I'm really excited about it. And it is a landmark moment in Virginia's continuing journey toward living up to our promise of true equality. And I often think about, as I've been doing this work now, protecting people's civil rights now for 7 years, I often think about the way previous attorneys general in Virginia made civil rights either an afterthought or even worse, actively fought against the rights of people they were supposed to be serving. And within the lifetime of people on this call, the Virginia Attorney General went all the way to the Supreme Court. Previous attorneys general went to the Supreme Court to defend segregated schools, or to oppose racial marriage, or oppose gender equality in higher education. And it was a profound miscarriage of justice, and in my view, a profound misunderstanding of what an attorney general should be about. I obviously have a very different approach, and I think that Virginia's attorney general should be the people's lawyer, fighting to protect and expand the rights of all Virginians, and using the law as a tool to help our fellow Virginians, to help ensure equality and justice and opportunity for all Virginians. And I know that's a commitment that you all share, and I can't thank you enough for your friendship and your support and partnership that you have given me over the years, and to the causes that we care about. This is also an election year. I know you're focused on advocacy, but it is an election year. I will need your help again this year. And again, it's unfortunate that we're not able to be together in person, because I've always enjoyed getting together with you all, but we will be doing that soon. Thank you for all of your advocacy. And until we are able to get together again safely, stay safe and stay in the fight.
Thank you so much for joining us. If I could just ask you a couple questions before you go. We're monitoring our question and answer box, and someone has raised the ongoing legal actions related to the Charlottesville events from, I guess, about 3.5 years ago now. And I'm wondering if you can just comment on that a little bit, on the rise in white supremacy in general, and yeah, share your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
And before you do, let me also say quite a number of the Q&A comments are letting us know how grateful they are and how appreciative they are of the great work that you've done in general. So I want to pass that along too.
Well, thank you. The friendship and support is mutual. And you know, what happened in Charlottesville was, I guess, worst white supremacy rally we've seen, but also had been detecting an increase in hate and white supremacy well before that. And really, I started seeing it in about 2015 in my own area of Northern Virginia in Loudoun County. And I saw anti-Hindu expressions spray painted on overpasses. And I thought, where is this coming from? And then, you know, we saw the threats against Jewish schools and Jewish community centers, and the anti-Semitic attacks. We saw it against mosques. We saw a resurgence of KKK flyers, even in Northern Virginia, which I never thought I would see, but it was happening. And so we really began our work well before 2017 to address it. And I've been sounding the alarm about the rise in white supremacy that I was seeing, and it just was not getting taken seriously by enough legislators in the General Assembly to give us tools to try to address it. And now that leadership has changed, and we now have support in the legislature, and we were able to get some tools to address it last year, because it's important. Of course, we must speak out against it wherever it happens, but it's also important to pair actions with those words. And I also was glad to see that it sounds like there's funding in the budget for trying to address some of the costs that are associated with having to protect places of worship and places that are have the potential for being a target of white supremacist violence. And in working with the Jewish community, that was something that, you know, I think not just the Jewish community, but communities of all faiths, it comes with mixed emotions. On the one hand, houses of worship are places that, you know, the people who go there want to be open and welcoming to people at any time. But at the same time, we've seen the direct threats. And so I know it's a difficult situation, but we just have to continue to work hard together, call out those elected officials when they don't condemn the white supremacist violence, or worse, deny it. All of that is important. And I do believe that working together, we will be able to combat it, but we still have a lot of work ahead of us. We also need to keep the lines of communication open. I've talked with a number of leaders within synagogues around the state. It's important for us to continue to hear from you and make sure that we are in good communication about how we can work together to address it. And I know the ADL has done a lot of great work as well.
Great, thank you. And I guess one more question, maybe turning to a slightly more positive note. one of the things that our community provides are some great social service agencies that really support the community in lots of ways, our community, our Jewish community, as well as the larger community. And I'm wondering if, or somebody in the chat has asked, and I wonder also, are there legal hurdles in Virginia that that need to be overcome in order to help funnel resources, budgetary resources, to nonprofits who provide services in a perhaps a more efficient way than government entities sometimes can? You know, I'm not familiar with the legal hurdles that would prevent that from happening. Wondering if you can speak to that.
You know, one of my predecessors issued a legal opinion that I'm not sure how solid the reasoning was, but that seemed to create some limitations. But I think most communities have been able to work within even those restrictions. But so I don't think there should be any legal barriers to that. But I will say, if there are, please bring them to my attention, and we will take a look and see how we might be able to break through. As some of you know, I got my start in public service as a county supervisor. And so there's always a special place in my heart for local government and community organizations. And I know from that experience that the state really relies on local governments and community nonprofits to really be a service delivery partner. You all are on the front lines, you know where the needs are and how best to meet them. And so, you know, the state can provide resources, but without those local groups really being able to deliver the services, it won't work. So if you all do experience any difficulties in trying to get resources to organizations that can really do a lot of good, please let me know, and I will work with you in order to try to make sure that we are able to be as supportive as we can.
Thank you. And do you mind one more question? Do you have another minute for us? Okay, great.
As long as the fire alarms don't go off.
Right, exactly. Well, we're testing it, right? So one of the issues that is big in the legislature this session is a lot of police reform measures. And in the news lately, especially here in Fairfax County, there have been some articles about how that impacts morale on the police force. And I'm wondering if you can just talk about sort of the balance how you strike that balance, and thoughts on that.
Well, you know, I've been working on criminal justice reform for years, and as someone who has been working on it for years, for those of us who have been working on it for a long time, we've been frustrated with the pace of reform, and things have really picked up following the murder of George Floyd. For a lot of Americans who might not have seen it firsthand or were denying it, it was undeniable for them. And that has really spurred a lot of movement in this area. There is no question that Black Americans and communities of color experience our criminal justice system and policing differently. It is undocumented, it is undeniable, and it's wrong. And there have been a lot of progress made in the General Assembly last session during a very long special session to begin to address those. And it's also, you know, in talking with law enforcement, they too, if there is an officer who really should not be in the profession, that has had, you know, a large number of incidences of excessive force, they should not be able to just leave one department and go to another community in Virginia and get hired and continue like. So there are a lot of reforms that the law enforcement community was supportive of. And I think there are ways that we can continue to work together. And this is really also about building trust between the law enforcement community and the communities that they serve. They know that they can't do the job alone, that they have to have the support of community members in order to provide them with information about what's happening in the communities and provide witnesses and so forth. So they know that they need to have the trust of the community in order to be able to do their job successfully. And I think we can continue to engage with law enforcement as well as advocates for reform to get to a good place and make sure that policing is safer and it's fairer, and we have a more just communities all across the state.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything that you do for Virginia. And we look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully in person.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's good to see everyone. And I saw that it looks like the speaker is on. So Speaker Filler-Corn, I can't see you, but hello if you're on, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bob, are you able to join us?
Yes.
Great.
Good morning. My name is Bob Budoff, and it's my pleasure to serve, along with my colleague Beth Mitchell, as a co-chair of the JCRC of Greater Washington's Northern Virginia Commission. It is my great privilege to introduce a member of our community and the Virginia Speaker of the House, Eileen Filler-Corn. We are so proud of her and the magnificent job that she is doing as Speaker. She started in the legislature in 2010 and has been a tireless advocate for Virginians. As Speaker, she has led the legislature through the pandemic, including leading 2 virtual legislative sessions, which we all know from our Zoom experience is yeoman's work. In 2020, she led the fight to pass the Equal Rights Amendment, strengthen economic development, made it easier for Virginians to vote, reduce gun violence, preserve reproductive freedom, and champion equality for all members of our community, among many other things. Many of us here today have known and worked with the Speaker for many years through her past service on the JCRC board of Greater Washington, and her current service on the boards of the Jewish Foundation for Group Homes and the American Jewish Committee, and in numerous other capacities in the Jewish community and in Virginia for the past 20 years. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Madam Speaker to our virtual podium.
Unfortunately, it says that my video, it's not allowing me. It says the host has disabled it.
Oh, try again. I think I just enabled it.
Okay. let me
Sorry
try.
about that.
No problem. I think that works. Great. You can hear and see me.
We can all see you now.
Okay. Thank you so much. And it's great to see you all. Thank you, Bob, for that kind introduction, and for all of you for your tireless work. I too wish we could be in person again, but this will have to do. But thank you to Beth and to the entire executive committee, the board of directors, Bob, Ron Halber, Vicki Fishman, Gila, and the JCRC staff. Thank you for everything that you all do on behalf of the Jewish community throughout our region every single day. It is so important, and I know you all work tirelessly. And I look forward to the time, hopefully soon, when we can all be together. So, I've said this before, our focus has been to ensure that every Virginian, regardless of gender, religion, race, geography, socioeconomic status, everybody can prosper, and that we can do better for all Virginians. And that was definitely the basis of our work in 2020. And as we continue to turn the corner on this, on where we are today with this health crisis, this global pandemic, economic crisis, has clearly touched the lives of all Virginians. And I think what we're doing now is we're trying to lay the groundwork for a more fair, more equal, and more prosperous Virginia moving forward. And I'm so proud to have you all as partners as we move forward. So I thought I'd start off with some of our successes and how the last year went. Talk a little bit about our first virtual session, our special session, what we accomplished, and then move into where we are today and our session. And I'd be remiss again if I didn't thank you all for partnering with us to ensure that we can move Virginia forward. You all have always been great, great partners, and I really respect and enjoy working with you all. So this was the first time in 20 years that the Democrats actually had full control of the House, the Senate, the governor's office, first time in 20 years. And we made a lot of progress on so many issues that have been so important to us. And honestly, key issues for you all, top of the list of your priorities, I know. We moved forward on gun violence prevention, voting rights, criminal justice reform, environmental protection, anti-discrimination. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say also, of course, ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment, being the 38th state to do so, and finally enshrining women in the U.S. Constitution. So that's key. It was also historic. We, had a record number of bills signed into law. What we showed in Virginia through our agenda was that when you are inclusive of diversity of perspectives, diversity of thought, diversity of religion, diversity of gender, you get better, more thoughtful policy. And so I just wanted to go through some of the issues briefly, and especially those issues that I know are near and dear to our community. So one of those issues is definitely gun violence prevention. And, I feel like we have in our society no greater responsibility than to keep each other and our children safe. And in light of the heartbreaking tragedies that our country has experienced, and certainly Virginia as well, we decided, obviously it was time to take action and go beyond thoughts and prayers. And you'll remember right after the Virginia Beach massacre that took the lives of 11 Virginians back in 2019, there were bills that the governor called us into special session. We were going to address these bills in 90 minutes into the session, gavelled in, gavelled out without addressing any of them. But you know what? We got through last year. We're proud to pass 8 of the bills that we started earlier. And we fought hard on all of those bills because we knew it would save lives, and you all were there with us. So some of the successes: universal background checks, red flag laws, reinstating 1 handgun a month, mandatory reporting for lost and stolen firearms, and each and every one of these bills will save lives. Another issue that's important to you all, and I know it's been a top priority for us, is criminal justice reform. And we've been fighting and moving things forward for a while. But this summer, I think, our Commonwealth, as well as the whole country, had to really come to grips with, we talk a lot about the crises, the economic crisis, the public health crisis, the pandemic, but also another crisis came to light, and that was crisis of systemic racism, one that our Black and brown colleagues, neighbors, friends have had to endure and overcome their entire lives. And it really took the murder of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor to serve as a wake-up call for those in our society. What are we doing? What can we do better? These folks have suffered from discrimination at every level of American life. And we knew that the time was now. It's always important as elected officials. I always say this, and my job is to listen. But we knew that the time was to act. And so what we were able to do was hold public hearings. And we did this virtually this summer, to actually combining the courts committee and the public safety committee. So we could actually talk about what kind of legislation we need to get through. And you know what? We were able to move forward, focusing on keeping all Virginians safe. We passed legislation to ban the use of no-knock warrants, reduce militarization of our civilian police force, created statewide minimum training standards for law enforcement officers, and strictly limited the use of chokeholds. Those were just a few of the many impressive and robust criminal justice reforms and measures that we were able to pass. Non-discrimination, another issue that I know top of the list of your agenda, always at JCRC and ours as well. We passed a record number of anti-discrimination legislation, including the landmark Virginia Values Act. So finally, it's illegal to deny Virginia employment, housing, or public accommodation based on who anyone is, who they are, and who they love. And so that was very exciting for all of us. Not only is it the right thing to do, but arguably it's also good for business. And I think Indiana, North Carolina, and others have learned the hard way that discrimination also happens to be bad for business. And so when I think back to the session, I feel like we've made our Commonwealth more opening, more welcoming, and more attractive for companies to come plant their flags as well. Education, top priority, always been a top priority for me and you all I know in our the caucus. And that's why we invested in our teachers, why we invest in our kids, giving teachers this past 2% raise in our biennium budget. Is that enough? No, working on more, but it shows our commitment. And also a historic $98 million for early childhood, which we know will be transformational. These investments will keep our the best and the brightest teachers in where they are, where they need to be on the job, and providing our kids a head start that puts them on the pathway to success. So virtually, our virtual session, how this came to be, it was important to me to make sure that we could fulfill our obligation, our responsibility to do our job. And we each represent 80,000 individuals. And I knew the best way to do so would be to provide an opportunity to do it virtually. Why? There's 100 members in the House. We each have at least one staffer. The clerks have staff, the IT have staff. And then we would all, if we were to have done it in person, we would all be returning to our communities, putting everybody at risk. So we moved forward. We had a good special session. So we had this past summer. So we had a lot of lessons learned. We knew how we could move forward virtually and decided to move forward with the 2021 session virtually. And things are going very, very well. I'm sure many of you are aware, we actually now have an opportunity to be even more involved. What we found was doing this session virtually provides an increase in transparency, and it allows even more people to participate, because it's so easy to just click from one session, from one committee to another. And you all have always participated and been very vocal advocates, and I'm sure you would agree that you're finding this even easier to do so now. So moving forward. So we've only been in a few weeks and we're getting close to crossover, which is Friday. And in thinking about what we were going to do, we knew that we needed to focus on what kind of agenda do we want that would support Virginians during this public health crisis, this economic crisis, while also setting the Commonwealth on a path to be even stronger moving ahead. So how are we doing that? Passing legislation that protects families, like paid family sick leave, eviction protections, making sure families are safe at home, investing millions to ensure that unemployed Virginians get the benefits that they need. We're investing to keep Virginians healthy, investing $200 million to ensure that all of us get the vaccine as quickly as possible, allocating millions to get Virginians enrolled in the state healthcare exchange, capping the cost of inhalers, expanding telehealth, increasing pharmacy transparency. We're also going to build Virginia and our economy back even stronger. So we're putting $36 million towards job retraining. And this is through the governor's G3 program. And I'm proudly carrying that along with Leader Saslaw. This was a priority before, and you can imagine now, given the this economic crisis and where we are, it's even more important now that people are retrained and have opportunity to for employment. Spending $15 million to expand broadband for our rural communities, and providing more assistance to small businesses to make sure they can stay open. We're also going to make the Commonwealth more inclusive. You've heard this permeate throughout my remarks. How do we do that? It's all about diversity, inclusivity, expanding voting rights even more than we have, passing marijuana legalization, creating LGBTQIA advisory board, and passing automatic expungement, which is a bill carried by Leader Herring. And also, we are going to invest in children by investing in their education, as we all know, top of the list of our priorities, allocating hundreds of millions of dollars to get our kids back in school, raising teacher pay, providing additional funding for tuition assistance. So I'm proud. I know I don't have a lot of time, but I've probably exhausted my time, but I'm so proud of what we were able to accomplish. And we were able to accomplish this with your help and with your support. You all are incredible advocates, and you're not afraid to stand up for the issues and the values that are important to your community, our community. And so I just appreciate your partnership. And, I know that you all heard me say this before, and I feel like, my actions are certainly guided from the concept of tikkun olam, and repairing the world. And what can we do? How can we make a difference? And I certainly, it's a value that's important to me, and I know to you all, as we try to also instill this in future generations. So, all that we've accomplished already and the work that we're currently doing is one way that we are repairing the world. And I appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you all today. I wish it can be in person. I hope you all remain safe and healthy. Looking forward to the day soon when we can meet together in person. I'm proud to call you my friend, and thank you for the opportunity to join you all today.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate all that you've done, and we are proud to have you as a member of our community. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Amy, are you on? Yes, you are. Great.
Thanks, Beth.
Yes. Well, hello, my name is Amy Melnick-Scharf, and I serve as the JCRC chair for the Jewish Community Federation of Richmond, right here in the capital of the Commonwealth. And I just want to thank Speaker Filler-Corn, Eileen. I want to thank you for spending your time with us, extend my personal thanks and gratitude to the hardest working speaker ever. I'm sure we all think of you as our speaker and our friend, because you are, and you have been a friend to the Jewish community throughout the Commonwealth. And she is a part of our Jewish community. She continues to Zoom regularly with her shul in Springfield, and she lives an authentic, proud, and public Jewish life. So I think we all can say, and we all deserve to kfel a little bit from all of your accomplishments. And I want to thank you for your dedication, your diplomacy, and your willingness to work across the aisle to just get things done that need doing. So thank you. And I also want to thank Governor Northam and Attorney General Herring for taking the time to join us to share their priorities with us this morning as well, especially their focus on combating anti-Semitism and white supremacy. I want to also thank all of you for taking the time out of your day to join us. It's pretty incredible. We have hundreds of you from across the state, from across the Commonwealth, all Jewish Virginians joining us, gathered, united, and representing our community to the highest levels of government. Yeah, it looked different. Sure, it looks a little different than in years past, granted. However, what's not different is that we have a commitment to advocacy based on our shared Jewish values. That will remain a constant throughout the year and not just today. So as a united Jewish community in Virginia, we can accomplish, and we do accomplish, great things when we work together. We are truly stronger together when we can coordinate and communicate and collaborate on our key priorities of combating anti-Semitism and all forms of hatred, as we did last year. And when we helped pass for the first time a budget establishing the first ever state security grant program to keep our communities safe. Governor Northam mentioned that, and we of course thank him for including that in his budget last year and this year. But I want to remind everybody that he did so because we asked him to. It was through our joint advocacy throughout the state, all the JCRCs united together to request that program be established. We also worked together to pass legislation to strengthen Holocaust education. I set a challenge for our federations this year in Virginia. We see a national rising incidence of extremism, of anti-Semitism, from Charlottesville and the chance of Jews will not replace us, to a man from right here in Norfolk, who with his hideous, disgusting t-shirt, mocking the 6 million who perished in the Shoah, in the Holocaust, as he stormed the US Capitol. I believe we need to look inward and recognize we have a lot of work to do right here in our own backyards, right here in Virginia, to combat hate. So let's work together to try and do that. Your advocacy does not start and end with your participation today. If you currently do not know your delegate and senator, commit to getting to know him or her over the coming months. You might have heard the expression, all politics is local. It's not a cliche, it is a fact. Showing up at your local town halls, participating in Federation advocacy programs, sending those emails, making those phone calls when asked, they're all important building blocks to effective advocacy. So thank you again. I want to thank my fellow volunteers for this morning's program, but especially the staff who make all of this possible. Rabbi Batya Glazer, JCRC Director from Tidewater, our newest addition to the JCRC regional team. Vicki Fishman for today's moderation, as well as being the Director of Government and Community Relations for Northern Virginia and DC. David Cohen, Director of JCRC Jewish Community Relations in Richmond. And Jeff Luckman, serving as both chair and point person for the JCRC in the Peninsula. And all the Federation professionals who in every region are working so hard every day to bring these programs and many more to you to life. And a special thanks to Hadassah, who has been such a committed program partner for Jewish Advocacy Day today and for many years, if not decades in the past. Now, I want to close with a quote before giving you some instructions that should be appearing in the chat or in the Q&A somewhere. So hopefully those instructions will be appearing soon. But before I give you those instructions, I want to close with a quote that I saw recently from Elie Wiesel as it relates to your advocacy, statewide advocacy, etc. He said, "We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented." So thank you again. So the instructions are the following. We encourage you to join your individual communities to continue your advocacy engagement. For Tidewater and Richmond, you can look to the chat. It's on. And the Peninsula, folks from the Peninsula, you can just go and have a great day. Your JCRC will follow up with you in the coming weeks. So thank you all again for being part of this program. Lahitraot, good health to all until we meet again.